Build professional skills this semester with Adobe Creative Cloud and create standout work both in and out of the classroom. Save big on professional creativity tools. Students get 65% off Adobe Creative Cloud, including Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, Acrobat Pro, and 20+ creative apps. No matter what project you're working on, Adobe Creative Cloud apps can help you take it to the next level. Visit adobe.com/student to learn more.
This is The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
They're running a strange program, y'all.
Now, here's Frank Morano.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff of the Falcon 9. Go Starlink.
So now we know what the fate of the International Space Station will be. Around the 2030 mark, SpaceX will deorbit the ISS and it will burn up in the atmosphere, creating the most expensive man-made fireball in history, as about $150 billion of hardware will light up the sky over the Pacific Ocean before what's left of it will crash into the sea at Point Nemo between New Zealand and South America.
It's a mosaic that's been composed of many different tiles of where the telescope has been pointing and making observations. This covers only about 1% of the area that Euclid will cover by the end of its mission.
The Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope will help us answer many of the biggest cosmic questions. Its wide-field view and coronagraph will complement missions like NASA's James Webb Space Telescope and transiting exoplanet survey satellite TESS. The Roman Space Telescope will be an indispensable part of space science during the next decade and beyond.
What we want to build is a bit like the Google map, Google Earth for the universe, so you could, that anybody in the future can look at the universe and see these billions of galaxies that we are going to map.
Well, here we are once again. Has it been 2 weeks already? No, it hasn't. My colleagues were asking me a few minutes ago why I had a little bit of an extra spring in my step this morning. It's because normally I have to wait 2 weeks to talk with Dr. Sky, but because of circumstances which have inured to my benefit, ladies and gentlemen, and yours, we get him 2 weeks in a row. Are you ready? Are you ready to embark on a voyage whose only limits are that of your imagination and your intellect? For the next hour, join us as we have some cosmic conversations.
The Other Side of Midnight presents
From the spiral to the elliptical to the lenticular to the irregular to the quasars, galaxies. Where are we in the cosmic evolutionary picture?
Always remember to keep your eyes to the skies.
The following conversations are cosmic conversations with Steve Cates, a.k.a. Dr. Sky.
Ladies and gentlemen, we collectively have won the radio lotto this week, because that's always the case whenever you get to talk with Steve Cates 2 weeks in a row. If you are just stumbling upon our show or you're a new listener, you are in luck, because for the next hour, we're going to discuss aviation, space, astronomy, any space travel, anything that involves looking up and being curious. If you want to jump on board and be a part of our conversation and ask a question or two, you can give us a call at 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. Steve, it's great to talk with you again.
Well, good morning, Frank. It's good to be back with you on another cosmic adventure with only a separation of some 7 days. So thanks for having me again.
No, thank you. All right. I don't know where to begin. Why don't we begin with the exciting things that are happening over at SpaceX? Obviously, SpaceX is Elon Musk's company. And if there's one thing Elon Musk has figured out a way to do, it's get attention, whether it's because of Starlink, whether it's because of its political activism, whether it's because of Twitter, or whether it's because of SpaceX. Last week, we discussed the kind of the innovative thing that they're doing with the so-called chopstick rocket returns. But apparently, SpaceX is marking their 100th launch of the year. That's a pretty big deal, isn't it, Steve?
Well, it sure is, Frank, and it's amazing what this man and this company has done, a collective pool of real rocket scientists, again, the right words, and, of course, the people that have the right stuff. So, as you mentioned, they celebrate now the 100th orbital launch of 2024, and this is a big mix of the very successful and powerful Falcon 9 launch boosters that they, of course, retrieved, and they've done this from the days of 2016, when they had to experiment and figure how to get that thing traveling so fast, that is the Falcon 9 booster, to make a soft landing on Earth. And then, of course, interlaced here, we talk about the Falcon 9 Heavy rocket that, of course, launched the Europa Clipper just days ago. And then the fascinating launch, that one of Starship 5, that I hope everybody has a chance or has had a chance to see the video on the largest rocket, most powerful rocket in the world, 16 million pounds of thrust. Here comes the booster making a soft landing back at the launch pad, Frank, as we know, grabbed by the chopstick arms known as Mechazilla, and that goes into the history book. But here we go. The only country in the world that's even close, this is important, China has had 47 launches this year, but as we even talk about this with the 100 launches of SpaceX this year, 96 of those are SpaceX launches with the Falcon, the reliable Falcon 9 booster. But their previous launch record, SpaceX going back last year, was 98 launches. So we're not even done with 2024, obviously. Great success to SpaceX.
Obviously, there's, I'm sure, always a potential downside to anything, and this is no exception. I'm sure people are going to raise ecological concerns or other concerns about resources or the energy required. What are the naysayers saying about why maybe this 100th launch of SpaceX isn't necessarily something to celebrate?
Well, I don't know how they could find any plausible stories or, evidence here. But again, just to be fair with the audience and everybody out there, SpaceX had a long delay, as they call it, with their Starship because of EPA concerns. That is, the potential of pollutants into the local area, like a marshland, and also concerns for what would happen there as far as when the first launch pad exploded when they launched the rocket. But again, there's other companies out there, too. I mean, Bezos is doing his Blue Origin. We have a lot of other companies that hopefully in future editions of Cosmic Conversations, we can actually dig into who else is out there doing some incredible things. And it's amazing. Even companies that have maybe 4 or 5 employees are doing the privatization of space, and they're also a very viable path to get us into space. But again, I can't think of anything that is negative, but if anybody's out there looking and saying, well, why is this even, important at all? It's so incredible if you look, as we talked in previous editions, the whole celebration from October the 4th, 1957, in such a short time, I'm just totally mind confused and, boggles the mind for everyone, I'm sure, that look how fast and look how much progress technologically we've made in such a short amount of time. That's amazing.
Absolutely. All right. A lot of people already eager to chat with you. If folks have questions, they should start queuing up right now. 1-646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. Let me begin with Max in Manhattan. Hi, Max.
Good morning,
Max. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Steve and guys, thanks for taking my call. I've noticed that there was some news on a second moon in the moon's orbit. Also, There's supposed to be a comet passing by us at the end of October. Now, if I were a medieval man or a Renaissance man, I would assume that this is perhaps some sort of bad omen.
Yes. Well, Max, you're right on this. We talked about it before, and I appreciate your questions. They're spot on. And let's take the first one, or the second one first, that we talk about with a comet. People are still seeing this. It's amazing. This comet called Shuchinshan, which is unexpected. It came out of nowhere from the dark part of the solar system and universe. It's been putting on a hell of a show for people all over the world with a big tail, slightly fading. The comet itself, as comets across in history, Max, Many people looked at them as bad signs in the heavens, like in the book of Revelations, revealing signs of doom and gloom or end of times. And it's amazing how many people back in 1910 were spooked by the comet known as Halley's, and we'll talk more about that later. But they saw the tail of the comet passing over the Earth, and there were a lot of capitalists and entrepreneurs that actually sold comet pills to people that were gullible enough to take them, which is interesting. But the mini moon that you're referring to, really quickly, the Earth has technically captured, and this is kind of an interesting story, a small object about the size of a small little SUV, or maybe even that of a small minivan, or a small little RV, like 30 feet. One of these minivan is 30 feet long, I imagine. But this object is technically just being absorbed by the Earth and moon gravity. But back on November 25th, as we move up, it'll be kind of spit out. So temporarily, we can say, yes, Frank and Max, the Earth does have indeed a second moon, albeit for a short time.
Thank you, Max. 646-720-0635. All right, there's been a lot of talk. We've talked a great deal about the International Space Station, really for the last 2 years, but especially for the last 3 months, because of these astronauts that have not yet been able to make it home yet. Apparently, the ISS is going to be replaced with a space station that creates artificial gravity. What's the story here, Steve? And before you could tell us what the new plans are, maybe you could bring us up to speed on what the gravity situation currently is at the ISS.
Well, obviously, they're in zero G. So everything you do, including sleeping and doing other bodily function things, which we all know, you have to do this with some concern. I mean, do we need to have shoes with Gorilla Glue on the bottom to keep us from floating around? Probably not that serious. But that's been a problem. But they're doing this on purpose. They understand that small of a space station. Now, let me not knock the ISS. It's pretty big. It's just a few feet shy of a full length of a football field, and we know the length there. But here's the interesting thing. It is too small in dimension that it could actually be utilized technologically to do what we call to create zero gravity. So now moving on to what's going to happen. Stories say a couple of things will happen. It'll deorbit by maybe 2030. Well, we hope not. Some have said we'll take it over and consider to make it and rebuild it a bit, a lot of money there, to be a hotel in space where now people who have a lot of money and an open line on their black American Express card, if they had one, could actually go up there and tour. But here's the reality. Let's go back to a movie that it's near and dear to everyone, and I hope everybody's seen it, Kubrick's epic 2001: A Space Odyssey. In there, we see a space station with some beautiful classical music as we see this big wheel in the sky turning. Now, allegedly, this is all fiction at the time, of course. It was some 1,800 feet in diameter. The object was in rotation. They created artificial gravity in the wheel that it turned once every 61 seconds. So this is a concept that Kubrick had. I mean, that's genius, thinking about that way back then in the 60s. But here's the real story, Frank, as we move forward. Companies out there, one called VAST, V-A-S-T, is looking to develop right now. They don't have it built, but they're hoping to fund it, called Haven 1 and 2. And these will be these type of spacecraft that can actually create, maybe not looking like a wheel in the sky, but they'll have the ability to create a ability to do artificial gravity, which makes living conditions on board, obviously, much, much better than being on a 24-hour-a-day amusement park ride. And that, of course, is something to be developed. But lastly, this is another interesting fact. Look how long it took to build the ISS over the years. It took 42 space missions with carefully Lego-style connective pieces to build this big platform in the heavens. So it can either be deorbited, and as I heard the other gentleman speaking at the top of the program, all spacecraft that have some sort of size are all sent to the spacecraft graveyard, which is that point they call Point Nemo. And you and I probably wouldn't want to be there. It's a very inaccessible part of the ocean, which lies way below the areas of, let's say, South America and the other end of, let's say, New Zealand. They intentionally deorbit spacecraft like that into that area for obvious reasons. So hopefully they'll build a spacecraft station, that is, space station, that has the effect of, gravitation, artificial gravity.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, you watch on Star Trek or Babylon 5 or Star Wars or any of these great space operas, these space shows, very rarely do you see anybody floating around in zero gravity. So you'd think we got to get our act together to at least catch up with the 23rd century as it's depicted in 1960s television.
And here's something real quick, which is kind of comical to some, but if you really look at the movie itself, and I encourage those that haven't seen the epic 2001: A Space Odyssey, one of Kubrick's greats, I'm sure you would agree, we find out that on board that space station, as you can see if you kept running around or walking, it's like one continuous loop, thus the effect of the big ring. It actually had a Hilton hotel up there, and it had something that's gone from history. It had a Howard Johnson's restaurant on board. They put that in the movie. Two interesting pieces of trivia. And they also had a very interesting phone, which was from the Bell system. It was a video phone. And I just found this out, some space trivia from the movie. The little girl that does make the phone call to her dad was Kubrick's daughter in that film. Very interesting.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
by the way,
absolutely.
The last Howard Johnson's restaurant was in Lake George. It closed just 2 years ago. So now the chances of that happening as it is in 2001 are seemingly minimal. All right. Let me squeeze in one quick question here, and then we'll take a quick break, and then I have a lot of other things that I'd like to go over with you. John is in Reno, Nevada. Hi there, John.
Good morning.
Right.
Good evening, John. All right.
John.
How you doing?
About 10 years ago, I was sitting in Reno. I was sitting in the plaza, which is about the size of a football field, right in the center. It was a cloudy, frosty day, and a block of ice the size of your grandma's console TV fell from the sky and landed about 20 feet away from me, and it broke apart. What was that?
Well, John, first of all, we appreciate your call out there in the West, which is still evening. But here it goes. There's many theories on this. I wasn't there, but what you experienced could, in a very low, level of accuracy here. We're just saying it's happened before. Actually, airliners have released and aircraft have released some of the waste tanks. I know this sounds crazy to people, but chunks of material. Was it blue, by the way, John, or you had no color to it? Because
brown, black.
Well, maybe the black and brown fits the description of a, release from a facility on board an airplane. But the point is, nobody really knows. You don't see chunks like that of ice coming down that size. So that's been recorded in history that aircraft have dumped these large things from the waste containers. Maybe they didn't mean to, but somehow they got out. But hopefully you weren't hit by that from the sky. It probably was a nasty thing inside.
Thank you, John. All right, we're going to continue with your questions in a moment. 646-720-0635. 646-720-0635. We'll also tell you what you can see in the night sky. It's been a really wonderful couple of weeks, weather-wise and in terms of proximity to celestial bodies, that for stargazing. We'll see if that is going to continue. My guest is Steve Cates, and we'll continue in just a moment to have some cosmic conversation straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Shopping is hard, right? But I found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And he sends just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what works and send back the rest. It's so easy. Make style easy. Get started today at StitchFix.com/Spotify. That's StitchFix.com/Spotify.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy, champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, Extra Strength Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
I told you about living in the U.S. of A. Don't you know that I'm a gangster of love? Let me tell you, people, that I found a new way. And I'm tired of all this talk about love. And the same old story with a new set of words about the good and the bad and the poor. And the times keep on changing, so I'm keeping on top of every fat cat who walks through my door. I'm a space cowboy. Bet you weren't ready for that. I'm a space cowboy. I'm sure you know where it's at.
Steve Miller Band singing their rendition of Space Cowboy. Not quite as good as the William Shatner version, but still good. Still good. All right, we have the radio space cowboy with us, Steve Cates, a.k.a. Dr. Sky. Who's Steve Cates? Well, he is a veteran radio and TV broadcaster. He's a regular contributor to this program, and he's what we call an edutainer. He educates and entertains simultaneously, and any of you that have ever tried to do either of those things know how difficult that can be at times. He's got a great deal of expertise in astronomy, in space, in aviation, number of other areas. He's also a terrific podcaster. He hosts a great podcast called the Dr. Sky Experience, which you can search on any podcast app, Spotify, iTunes, anywhere. Just search the Dr. Sky Experience or go to redapplepodcastnetwork.com and you can be treated to it. Just again, search the Dr. Sky Experience. All right. Steve, the European Space Agency is doing something pretty interesting. They're moving forward with some mission preparations to a rather infamous asteroid. What is the ESA doing here, Steve?
Well, there's a concept that they're actually going to send out. It's called Ramses, and it's actually a spacecraft to do something incredible. We all have heard here on this particular show and other media that an asteroid is going to get exceptionally close to the Earth April the 13th of 2029, the namesake office named in honor, I gather, of the Egyptian god of war. And many people, though in some legacy media, have reported this, in my opinion, in an incorrect way, saying that, this asteroid is coming very close and it has a high chance of hitting the Earth. The good news is it's probably not going to do that on this path. So this particular spacecraft is actually going to go after it, so to speak, follow it and track it. But when it's visible, and I'm looking at how I can figure a place to go, maybe we can do this big mass migration of people to see it. We have years to prepare for it. It will be visible in the night sky, not as a super bright star, but you'll actually see its passage somewhere on the Earth. I think the location that's scheduled to do this is somewhere in Europe, and maybe even in Australia. We don't have it all accurate yet. We have time, but you'll be able to see it, right, moving across the sky in real time. But remember, it's going to come in closer than this big ring. If the Earth has a ring, it's the geosynchronous satellites. So it's actually going to sneak in closer than what we see the geosynchronous satellites, which are some 22,000 miles above the Earth. The only possible danger, I have to be careful how we say this, not to alarm people, in its next passage around 2036, 2037, if that object, Apophis, goes through this gravity unstable area called a keyhole, it's out there, you can't feel it, it's just a gravity anomaly, it could then change its direction, but even still, accurate predictions say at this point that it's still not going to hit us at least any time in a couple of hundred years, if that at all. So that's a spacecraft. And let's not forget, too, the ESA also has a spacecraft called Hera, H-E-R-A, that is going back to this binary asteroid, Dimorphos and Didymos, like we did when we slammed in an impactor into the little Dimorphos. It's going to go ahead and do some observations of that, because when we hit it years ago with the impactor, with DART, it may create in maybe 5-10 years the first man-made meteor shower on the Earth from a debris that we intentionally created by hitting the little tiny other part of the binary asteroid. How fascinating.
Absolutely. All right, 646-720-0635. Fred is in New Jersey. Hi, Fred.
Hi, Dr. Sky. I'm 88 years old, and I was wondering, I got no science education, but I was wondering, when there's a hurricane over the ocean, what if we flew above it and dropped in some concussion bombs? Could it break it up?
Well, Fred, first of all, your question is great, and good morning. Here's the thing. It possibly could, but remember one thing. Those powerful bombs that we would drop, if you describe them as concussion bombs, are nowhere near the effect that you would have to really to be able to disturb a hurricane, because all the energy source, Fred, is the hot water that's in there. Let's take the Gulf, with Helene and Milton. The incredible temperatures that are now in the Gulf are the mother's milk or the fuel for this. So we don't really know what would happen. But then the opposite side of the equation, which we never would do, but if you had this ability where no people were on the Earth, if you dropped an atomic weapon in there, it might do a little bit more disturbance, but obviously I don't think concussion bombs would do much of anything compared to the power of the hurricanes. They're just literally Mother Nature gone wild, don't you think?
So great. Thank you, Dr. Sky.
Fred,
my pleasure, Fred.
Thank you. Steve, I have to ask you about this. I saw a headline, and I wasn't sure what to make of it. At first, I thought it was a joke. The headline was this: the Nancy Grace Space Telescope is in the works. Now, is this a telescope that just sees all the stars as guilty of everything, even if they're not charged? What in the world is the Nancy Grace Space Telescope?
Well, let's first discuss who Nancy Grace was. She was the chief astronomer way back when at NASA.
Nancy Grace, not the Court TV Nancy Grace.
No, not at all. I don't think they'd named that for her at all. And if they did, I would wonder why, but not to say anything bad about the other Nancy Grace. But no, Nancy Grace was the chief astronomer for NASA. And the interesting thing that most people maybe not even know, or maybe nobody's really looked into this, is she's technically, quote, the mother of Hubble. End quote, because she was the one who helped design it and helped get it to be moved forward. But this space telescope is a little bit different. It's another infrared telescope. And if Webb has any, ability to be jealous, I don't think it should, because its mirror, it's an 8-foot mirror compared to the massive one that's on Webb, which is a collective 21 feet. But it's going to be doing something different. Webb, as we know, we could talk years about this and we still wouldn't be finished. That does an infrared scan of the sky in a very focused area. So let's say you took the sky and you put like a little square grid across the sky of like a degree apiece. Let's use Webb description as it's zooming into those tiny little areas, like pixels on a computer. And it's looking deep in there. But this Nancy Grace is the opposite. It's looking for wide angle views of the heavens. And this is kind of fascinating because it's hopefully going to be up there in orbit by May of 2027. It's a very interesting spacecraft, but its position, it'll go to one of those things called Lagrange. And not to sound confusing, these Lagrange points are like where they put Webb. It's a place where it's stationary in space so that it can stay above the Earth at a location. And in that case, with Webb, it kind of blocks the sun sometimes, so the sun is not overheating it. The particular Webb is about 1 million miles away. Nancy Grace would be positioned about 500,000 miles away, so as not to get in competition or in the path because space, as we know, is quite large. So hopefully that particular telescope will also do some interesting things. And one more to add that probably nobody's talked about is the ESA's Euclid Space Telescope. How about this? The Euclid Space Telescope is another amazing technological feat. It has a super wide angle of resolution. And if we all are excited about our iPhone or our Androids, Frank, that have these great megapixel cameras, the Euclid has, get a load of this, and I'll repeat it twice, a 600 megapixel camera. Wow. And it has the ability, with a 47-inch mirror, it can download 850 gigabytes of data a day. I can hardly keep up with my local internet that I get from my local provider. So all this technology, isn't this amazing? I mean, we could do shows forever on this and still only scratch the tiny surface.
Indeed, indeed. All right, let's say hello to Al in New York City. Hello, Al.
Good morning.
Hey, Dr. Sky. Good morning, and Superstar.
Hey.
The best show on the best network and with the best guests.
Thank you.
Listen, I have a question. Actually, two, if I have time will allow. First one is this. I've observed when I fly, I like to travel. I go sometimes to the Orient, and I've noticed that it's always a circular arc. And at the same time, I know that all of our ballistic missiles, subs, and land-based missiles seem to have everything going at a half an hour, always over the North Pole. So you can answer why that would be. And also the other question is, how significant was, after the World War II, that the Russians and ourselves raced to get Werner von Braun and the German scientists? Was that a significant advancement for our space program or theirs?
Good questions. Wow. If you were giving prizes away, Frank, I think this one would be right there for number one.
Don't give anybody any ideas. Our prize budget is maxed out.
There you go. Well, maybe I'll have to reach into the Dr. Sky gifting.
There you go.
Anyway, two great questions, Al. Let's talk about Germans. Of course, the United States, after beating Germany through all the hardship and the loss of life, these scientists at Peenemünde were then recruited. No, they were forced to come to America because we pulled out all these different missiles, V-1 rockets, V-2s, and we basically didn't have an understanding of how they work. So basically that crew, regardless if they wanted to, were the instruction manual, and then, of course, they were put to work in White Sands to be able to do this. So that is a pretty significant thing, but it wasn't just like many history books, in my opinion, report. They volunteered to come to the United States. They were basically told, hey, do it or face, your own trials if you were involved much deeper in what Nazi Germany was doing, and they were part of it. Now, going back to your first concern, aircraft, naturally, again, I'm not a pilot, but I just have so many friends when we fly, but in conditions where you fly from, let's say, here to the Orient, it looks like a straight line is the simple way to go if you look at a map. But no, these great arcs absolutely are the best and fastest way to go. The only problem, Al, with flying over some of these big arcs above the pole is the fact that during solar activity now, a lot of the radios that aircraft use are in the HF high frequency range. And they've been suppressed because of these solar storms to the point where it becomes interference. So the simple thing is flying the arc is a quicker and faster and more fuel economy economic way to get to your destination than what you'd think if you drew a line on a map and said, no, that looks quicker. It's all about the math. And there you go. Great question, Al. Appreciate that very much. Steve, there have been a lot of things worth looking at of late. Venus, the moon, all sorts of cool moons, super moons, hunter moons, you name it, even a comet. What's worth checking out in the night sky, either with binoculars or with the naked eye in the coming days and weeks? Well, very good, but I'm going to make a plea here on the show here for Cosmic Conversations. I hope listeners out there, I'd love to hear their stories if they come and tell us what they saw, because this comet, which is called Chuchinshan, it has the most difficult name to pronounce. We basically call it Comet Chuchinshan Atlas, Chuchinshan in the Mandarin world, and I probably didn't get it absolutely correct, so I apologize to our Chinese friends. It literally means Purple Mountain. It was one part discovery at the Purple Mountain Observatory in China, and Atlas, it's an observatory, like a robotic telescope in South Africa. The comet, Frank, is literally, no words could describe it. It was absolutely fantastic. Still in the sky now, so answering questions are what we can see. It's now a faint object for city dwellers. You need a pair of binoculars. But here's the way to find this, folks. For all of you listening out there, go to the most classic website of all, theskylive.com. I'll say it again, theskylive.com. Check out this great, great information center. If you look under comets, find the comet. It'll give you descriptions of where to look in the sky through a wide field view, through a magnified binocular, through a telescope, and then they have the thing which is live tracking, and that's amazing. But again, that's the way to see this comet. It's strange. There was supposed to be another one coming. The legacy media was talking about comet C2024S1, this big chunk of a comet that was supposed to herald toward the sun. It may have fizzled out, but that was supposed to be brighter. So things you can see real quick. If you look into the west, southwest at sunset, the bright thing you're looking at is Venus. And on the 26th, the evening of, the planet Venus and the beautiful star Antares, the heart of a scorpion, the star is 500 light years away. Venus is about 100 million miles away. They'll all be within a few degrees in the sky. That's an easy one to see, especially if you have binoculars. The real sky show, obviously Saturn is still high up into the southeast at sunset. But Frank, Jupiter, right now across where this show is being heard across the nation, you can look high up into the eastern sky, northeast precisely, and you'll see this bright white thing. That's Jupiter.
Wait, that's with the naked eye?
Oh, you see Jupiter with the naked eye. It blazes in the sky. You can't miss it. It looks like a Venus, but Venus is brighter. But then, here we go. There's another connection going on now. For those of you that have a clear sky, look to the east. And whether you're on Eastern time right now, obviously Orion, the constellation, rises there. For the west, it's just starting to get high. Quickly, the Orionid meteor shower is kind of tapering out. If you see any meteors from the left edge of Orion, the star with the funny Michael Keaton association named Betelgeuse, that's where the meteors come from. You may not see a lot of them, but if you see any, they're debris from Halley's Comet, as all comets pump out meteor showers.
Well, that's really interesting. 646-720-0635. Let's say hello to Stephen in Southern Illinois, listening on KMOX. Hi, Stephen.
Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning. You're awesome, Dr. Sky.
Well, thank you.
When are we going to make it to Mars?
Well, that's a good question. And, again, I say this with caution because a lot of people disagree with me, Stephen and Frank. The race to the moon, let's go quickly to that and I'll answer about Mars. We've been there, and we haven't been there for a long time. And now we have these plans where we're going to get there by certain day, and we're going to send men and women to the moon. Okay, great. But we have our issues with some of the rockets that we have, some of the landing systems. My simple thing is, let's do it right. Take our time to do it. Now let's go to Mars, the part of your question. That is an even more insurmountable task right now, because even if we were to do this, the best hope on Earth right now, Stephen, lies with what Elon Musk is doing with Starship. The little rocket, which is pretty big if you looked at it really close, this stainless steel rocket that looks 50s, 1950s sci-fi. That's supposed to be the rocket that will eventually take people to the planet Mars. But there's another problem that has to happen, or solution to a problem. They need to do tanker versions of that Starship that are filled with liquid methane fuel and stage them along the path along where this is, the spacecraft is headed. First, we have to build a space station around the moon as a segue to go. So I don't think, I know it takes a long time for me to answer this one because it's a lot, and it's a lot of information. I wouldn't see us doing anything with Mars if we do it right, and that's the only way to do it, till at least the year 2035 or maybe even 2040, only because, in my opinion, we just need to do it right. We don't need a one-way mission. I mean, you and I wouldn't volunteer, right, Frank and Stephen? So do it right, maybe by 2035 or 2040 at the earliest. And even then, there's a lot of issues that we have to deal with once you're on the surface. It's a difficult planet. Mars is an interesting planet, but it's very much difficult to be able to survive there and prosper, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Although I think Buzz Aldrin has been one of these guys that has been beating the drum to go to Mars, and he's been saying that we should look for people that want to do a one-way mission. Look for people that essentially want to stay there, want to go to Mars and launch a new colony there, and not come back because of the logistical difficulties of that.
Mm-hmm. It may be interesting, but I know it's not. Well, I'll speak for myself. It's definitely not me. Not that I'm afraid.
Yeah, same.
It's just that, and I don't think it's for you, but you have to answer for yourself. But no, you're right. But that would be interesting. I'd love to listen and talk to those people that actually want to do it that way and dig real deep into that. I mean, they're pioneers, but wow, that's a strange proposition in many ways in my mind.
Indeed. All right. We're going to continue with your calls in a moment. If you want to jump on board, you can do so at 646-720-0635. My guest is Steve Cates, a.k.a. Dr. Sky. We're going to continue in a moment with Cosmic Conversations straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
5 immersive worlds, 1 amazing theme park. Get ready to explore the all-new Universal Epic Universe, featuring the wizarding world of Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic, Super Nintendo World, How to Train Your Dragon, Isle of Berk, and Dark Universe. Epic Universe, now open at Universal Orlando Resort. Our universe will never be the same. Tickets and packages on sale now at universalorlando.com.
The rural way of life is about making everyone feel at home. Tractor Supply chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform intelligent customer service. Together, we put the power of AI to work across 2,200 stores, keeping things running seamlessly inside, curbside, and countryside. This is elevated customer experience. This is Tractor Supply with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
It ain't no joke, I like to buy the world a token, teach the world to sing in perfect harmony, and teach the world to snuff the fires and the liars. Hey, I know it's just a song, but it's fast for the recipe. This is a love attack. I know when our body's back, it's just like any fat. It retracts before impact, and just like fashion, it's a passion for the withered and hip. If you got the goods, they'll come and buy it just to stay in the clique. So don't delay, act now, supplies are running out. Allow if you're still alive, 6 to 8 years to arrive. And if you follow them, maybe out tomorrow. But if the authors shine, you might as well be walking on the sun.
Walking on the sun. We are talking about the sun, the moon, the stars, the other planets as we embark on some cosmic conversations with Dr. Sky. If you want to hear more from Steve Cates, you can certainly do so by checking out the Dr. Sky Experience. He is a prodigious podcaster, not just about this stuff, but he's done a lot of great interviews on a wide variety of subjects, which are definitely worth checking out. But you can check out the Dr. Sky Experience on any podcast app, or you can go to redapplepodcastnetwork.com and just search Dr. Sky. Steve, I have to ask you about this just because it once again involves Boeing. Apparently, a Boeing satellite belonging to the multinational service provider Intelsat mysteriously blew into pieces in geostationary orbit over the weekend. According to an official update, an anomaly caused the satellite to be destroyed, resulting in what the company calls, quote, a total loss. Now, obviously, Boeing's been in the news quite a bit because of their airplanes, but what would cause a satellite to mysteriously blow into pieces?
Well, let me start with the story of that. It was launched back in August of 2016 in Guyana with the French Ariane rocket, a very powerful rocket. These are very high technology. I mean, kudos to Boeing on the building of this concept. This particular satellite, known as Intelsat 33E, is put, as we've said before, into geostationary orbit, so 22,000 miles above in space. But its function is a kind of a broadcast platform where it can transmit and receive data. You know, if you're doing live television, it has the ability to do a lot more than that. Kind of like a miniature Starlink concept in a way. But it's positioned over 60 degrees east longitude. It was positioned 60 degrees east longitude over the Earth to cover Asia and Europe. Now, to answer what theoretically happened, it's possible here that a compression problem happened in some of the propellant tanks on board, a highly unusual situation. But now, if we go into the conspiracy side of the world, is there some nefarious group that wants to shoot this thing down or blow it up? You know, we've talked about space warfare. I highly doubt that that's the case, but I'll go with the concept. I had a vote on it. It's probably something to do with problematic overpressure in some of the fuel tanks that are on board those things, propellant tanks. But what a loss. But all I can hope for is the owners of that, you know, the Intelsat, that they have Lloyd's of London as their next phone call, because that's a lot of money to lose in a very strange way. So we'll keep updating people on this, as I'm sure you will, the strange explosion of an important satellite for unknown reasons at this point.
Very, very interesting. All right. 646-720-0635. A lot of people very eager to talk with you. And even though I have a lot of stuff that I want to go over with you, I'm going to try and squeeze in as many of these calls in the next 10 minutes as we can. Let's say hello to John listening in St. Louis on KMOX. Hi, John.
Good morning, John.
Hey, Frank. Hey, Dr. Sky. Hey, I've always been, I'm retired. I'm an old guy. And I've always wondered how in the heck did we communicate with the Gemini, the Apollo? How the heck did we communicate with somebody on the moon? Yes. I've got a CB radio, and I have a hard time communicating with somebody in California.
Hey, I hear you, my friend. Well, let's put it this way. In the early days of the 60s, let's start off with the original Mercury program. You have these large tracking antennas here on the Earth, and they're using higher frequencies than you normally have on CB, which is low in the megahertz band. So what they have, I mean, to do deep space, I mean, to go to the moon, you're talking the speed of light transmission. So in other words, when Neil and Buzz were on the moon in Apollo 11, the signal bounced back 1.3 seconds, like the old, remember the next telephone that had like a radio in it, like a walkie-talkie? Yeah. But how they do that is they have special frequencies to be able to send those signals out into space. And the strangest one of all, John, is that if you think about the Voyager spacecraft, it's getting a signal of tiny, tiny, minuscule portions of a watt that they send out from a big giant dish in the Southern California Mojave Desert called the Goldstone Tracking Antenna, if I said it right, this big monstrous radio telescope. And it sends that signal out. As tiny as it is, it takes almost 24 hours to get there. So they use these higher frequencies. They use a lot of these ground-based stations. There was one in Canberra in Australia when the astronauts went to the moon, because when the Earth turns, obviously you want to be in communication. So they had that figured out. And kudos to a big company here. I don't normally say this. Motorola is one of those great companies that did most of that work. They're in that space-time in the early days.
Thank you, John. We got a very, very special listener calling in, Steve, from Europe. Noemi calling from France. Hello there, Noemi. Bonjour.
Good morning, Noemi.
Bonjour. Bonjour, Dr. Sky. Bonjour, Frank. I am so happy. I always enjoy your presence. My question, I wonder, how long does it take before the expansion of the Earth to move away from the sun?
Very good question. Well, good morning to you and all of France. But here's the basic answer here. The Earth itself, hopefully, if I'm listening clearly, we're going to be in a fairly stable orbit. But what will happen in the future, sad to say, is that the sun, as it runs out of fuel, this is billions of years from now, will then be absorbed by the sun. But the possibility is that it could slowly move away from its present orbit. And it's very simply, as we wrap it up, the Earth is in that precious zone that if we moved it millions of miles closer, things would be bad, just as if we moved it or it moved millions of miles away. So we appreciate your interest in hopefully something that doesn't happen anytime soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Noemi. 646-720-0635. We were just talking about that European Space Agency mission. Mark in Connecticut has a question. Hi, Mark.
Good morning, guys. Dr. Sky, your knowledge is top notch. Just wanted to follow up on Apophis. What is the purpose of that mission to hit Apophis?
Well, it's not going to actually smack it. It's going to track it. Now, that's kind of weird to say that, because if you have something that's so nefarious coming so close to the Earth, wouldn't you want to push the thing away? So that's not its intention. It's actually to study it and take images of it, because here's the big problem, and I'll be real brief here. Asteroids are not these perfect round balls. They're not like a ball bearing. They're all amorphous. They're like a potato. So the problem is, even though you think you can predict its orbit, the sun's energy on that surface, it's called the Yarkovsky effect, meaning as that little thing is turning and rotating, the sun heats it in different ways that makes its orbit not predictable. So it's going to try and understand how these objects like asteroids can be somewhat more understood as far as if you're trying to plan an orbit. That's its purpose.
Okay. So they're not at all worried that it might change its trajectory slightly and hit the Earth?
Well, I don't know how to answer that. Right. It's primarily going to observe it and try to understand what makes these objects turn by what they call it differential heating from the sun. I mean, in simple words, it's like it's going to see how much heat makes that asteroid not follow the orbit that you predicted, because it's not a round object. It's got bumps and grinds and all kinds of stuff. But no, it's not going to do an impactor mission. That would be different. That's maybe far in the future if one's directly to hit us.
Thank you, Mark. 646-720-0635. Janet is in Manhattan. Hi, Janet.
Hi, Frank. Hi, Dr. Sky. I wanted to ask about this mission that I heard about. I think it left October 11th to Jupiter's large moon, Europa. Yes. And I think they said it was going to take 5 years to get there. And they're going to investigate the water. Apparently, and I don't know how they know this, that Europa is covered with what they think is water ice, and under the ice is possibly liquid water, as much water as we have on the Earth. And Jupiter's moon is about 90% the size of our moon. So what can you tell us about that? How do they know there's water there? What are they looking for exactly?
Well, here's a quick answer, Janet. They have observed from telescopes and previous spacecraft, like the Juno spacecraft, and others that have been in Jupiter's orbit, the Jovian orbit, that there's icy surfaces there. And what they think is that underneath that particular object, Europa, there may be more to it than just surface ice. So this particular spacecraft that you correctly identified, the Europa Clipper, it's going to take a long time to get to Jupiter. And many people go, well, how come it's taken so long? First, it goes to Mars, it races. It's going to use Mars as a slingshot, come back to the Earth. Sounds like it's going the wrong way, right? Then it's going to use the Earth's gravity to shoot it back to Jupiter, and it won't get there till 2030. So that's fascinating. And we have a lot of time, right, Janet and Frank, to talk about and update people on Europa Clipper.
Steve, as it always does, whenever we are together, the hour has flown by. Hopefully I'll see you when you're in New York. Thank you, my friend.
I love it, and thanks to the listeners, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
In the immortal words of Casey Kasem, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.